Welcome back, everyone. I'm here to now go over all the patterns from base HexCasting, and I'm gonna tell you, it took too long. It took me like hours for all of this. Like, here, let me show you from above. This took a while. All these straight ones, that's all patterns. That's great spells, that's normal spells. Same amount of work for both of those combined. And even this, I would say, is more. But, so, because of that, I will have to probably cut the video into parts. Not like separate videos, but like little sections in the video. So if I can't figure out that, I'll probably have timestamps in the description. So, yeah. So, let's get into this. So, based off my memory, these should be basic patterns. Now, these patterns you've probably seen me use a lot in my past videos, so let's just go over them again. This is Mind's Reflection. What it will do is take nothing and put you, yourself, the caster, as an entity into the stack, which can be quite useful. So if you want to use yourself to give yourself a potion effect or something of the sort, you'd use it with Mind's Reflection. Now these two are Compass Purification 1 and 2. 1 will get the position of, for example, in this case, your head. If it was on that other entity, it would give the position of their head. In Compass Purification 2, what it does is gets the position of your feet, where you're standing. Not the block you're standing on, but the position that your feet are on. So these two can be quite useful. Now these two are used to get directions. This one, you've also seen me use before. It is called Aladdin's Purification. It will get your looking direction, which can be quite useful. Now the other one I actually have not shown you. It's called Pace, or Pace Purification. Essentially, what it does is instead of getting the direction that you're looking, it gets the direction you're moving. So if I actually want to show you this properly, I would have to either fly or fall while trying to cast it. And honestly, falling actually isn't going to be the best way when I think about it. So what I'm going to do is go to my flying spell, start flying, and then write Pace Purification. And you'll see that gave me that number this time, which is the case. But if I were to go back and this time instead not have it as so, instead just write it on the ground, you'll notice that it gives me nothing. 0, 0, 0. All zeros, because I'm not moving. So it can be great in like a spell holding thing combined with an artifact, or just an artifact that you can click and use it. But with just drawing it, it's not going to usually be useful. Now this one you've also seen me use in my dual spell, the one where, like this, you can see it's right there as the second glyph. This will get the height of the player as a number, or whatever entity you put in. So in my case, it's 1 block and 80% of a block. So 180% of a single block. So yeah. And if I were to crouch, it would give me a lower number. Now these two you've also seen before quite frequently. This is Archer's Distillation, and then this one is Architect's Distillation. Now you may remember Archer's a little bit better. It basically combines a starting point and then a direction, and using those two, it will perform a ray cast from that starting position then to get what you're looking at. In this case, it'll be that block. It'll be that block right there. Now if you haven't seen me make a place block spell, you may be unfamiliar with this. If I give it the same information, it will look like it just gave you a nonsense thing. So let's do it. You see, it gave me a 1. Now, that's because I'm looking at the top of the block, the positive y direction. And that 1 stands for positive y. So it's giving me the top side of the block. Yes, so it's giving me the direction that this block, the side that I'm looking at, is facing. So it's facing up, positive y. And you can use that with this to get the position of a side of a block, so you can place a block there or something like that. It can be quite useful. Now this one is basically just like Archer's distillation, but instead of being for blocks, it's for entities. But yeah, remember, you have to be looking at the entity. It has to be right on your crosshair when you cast this. So just remember that. Now this one is a unique little one that I don't know if I've shown you. This one is called Reveal. You cast it, and it prints out in the chat what you had in your stack. The top IO in your stack, it'll print that out in chat, which can be quite useful. And it also does not get rid of what's in your stack. So remember that. Now the next section, which we have, is mathematics and stuff. There will be a more advanced one later down the line, but this is like basic mathematics. Now these two are from number like literacy, because numbers in HexCasting can be quite weird. There's 5 basic ways to move to indicate what number you want to get. Now this one signifies positive numbers. This one means negative. So up and over is negative, down and under is positive. Remember that. Basically, if I click and right click and go forward, like it says, it adds 1. Now, if I instead go left, which is up, it adds 5. And you see, it just doesn't go up in the same direction. Going forward will just continue to add 1s. You have to continue turning like that. And then the other direction, and if you just leave it like that, it's also 0. But if you go the other direction, which is right, you don't want negative, you want positive, it'll also just go 10. Now, sharp left and right are multiply and divide. So if I put 1 here, then I go sharp left, I get 2. If I go sharp right, I get 1/2. So remember that. And so remember, this all applies to the normal numbers as well, the negative ones. So they're all the same. Now these two are additive distillation and subtractive distillation. It basically acts as your plus sign and your minus sign. So that one you're probably going to be using a lot more. That one's just the inverse. So if I have 1 plus, let's say 3, and I add them, I get 4. Now let's say I do the same thing again, but with subtractive, you'll also get -2, I believe, if my math is correct. -2, yep. So it can be useful. Now these two are multiply and divide. So I can have 1 times by 2, and then I have 2, or I could have 4 times by 5. And that's the result you'd get. And just for a clearer one, let's also just go 10 and then do it with 5. Yeah, and just remember, it works like normal math. Now these ones are a little bit more advanced. You're probably gonna have to be further down the line in learning math to know these. This one is length, which just means even if it's negative, it will show you the true length from 0. So this is -2, but is still 2 digits away from 0. Or not digits, but still. It's 2 decimal points. Or not. Just the point is, it'll give you a 2. Even if it's negative or positive, it'll give you the true distance from 0. And the other one is basically to the power of. So let's say I want 4 squared. So I'd get 4, and then I would put 2. That would act as squaring. See, it's squared 4. Now, if I were to do it with 3, which would be cubing, it would still work. It's just your basic math. And then these are basically your rounding. So let's say I want, well, 0.5 should work. So let's say I want to round it down to 0. I can just do this. And it rounds it down to 0. Now let's say if I do it again, but I want to round it up to 1. It will round it up to 1. So you can choose either to round it up, or round it down. So it just won't automatically do it for you. So that's nice. Now these two can be a little bit confusing if you don't understand how vectors work. So a vector is basically just 3 numbers, or even 2 depending on which type of vectors you're working with. And a vector could either be a position, like coordinates. See, my current coordinates, you can see over by x, y, and z. Those are my coordinates. The x is this direction, the z is this direction, and the y is this direction. They are all signified by numbers. So 3 numbers to signify my position. And I also can have a vector signify a direction by instead having which direction I'm facing be a higher number and which direction I'm not facing be a lower number. So let's say I'm facing more x than anything else. If I cast thing to get my looking direction, you'll see x is highest. There's a little bit of y, but no z. X is the highest. That's because I'm facing mostly an x. And that's basically how vectors work. Essentially, these two, off of my memory, should be right here. And one of them takes 3 numbers and turns it into a vector, which should be this one. This one turns 3 numbers into a vector. So let's say I want 11, 12, and 3. I want those to be my vectors. I then cast this. It turns it into a vector for me. It can be useful. You just need 3 of any number, and then you have a vector. Now this one will take apart a vector into its 3 numbers. So I can just do this. Now I have 3 numbers signifying vectors. Yeah, and if I were to combine it back together again, not like that. But if I were to just take it apart and put it back together, it signifies in the same direction. Remember, x is going to be the lowest in the stack, and z is going to be the highest in the stack when you take it apart. Remember that. And now, this one, I actually don't really remember. I remember. So basically, this one will act as your division, but instead of giving you how many groups were left, it will give you the leftover, how much numbers were left over. So let's say I divide 5. Let's say I divide 5 by 2. Now, if I were to get that, it'll take away 2 groups of 2. It isn't able to make up a third group of 2, so what it does is gives me the leftover. So when I cast this, when I have enough space, of course, it gives me 1 because the leftover was 1. So it's good for getting leftovers in division. Now this one, I also don't really remember. Okay, so this one will basically round up a vector to the closest axis direction. So let's say I look in mostly the x direction. See, so x is the highest one. Now, if I cast this, then what it will do is put it as pure x, which can be useful. The numbers, I don't remember. Let's actually experiment, because I do not remember. Okay. No difference. You see, sometimes even if you understand one way to use a glyph, you're going to have to experiment with it to understand. Oh, I see. So basically, it'll tell you if a number was positive or negative by turning it into 1 if it was positive and -1 if it was negative. There we go. And then this one you could use as a random thing because it will randomly pop up either a positive 1 or 0. Oh no, it pops up somewhere in between the two. It pops up something in between 1 and 0. That's actually kind of cool. I thought it was only 1 or 0, but no, it's anywhere in between. So that's nice to know. Now, this next one, to my memory, this is constants. This is stuff that no matter where you draw it or when, it will always be the same. And if it isn't, that means the laws of reality are just broken. That's not good. So, let's continue. So, basically, these two act as true or false. So, they're Boolean. If you're unfamiliar with programming, you will not get that. But yeah, so this will give you true. So if I draw it, it'll always give you true. No matter when you draw it, it'll always be true. That one, right over here, will always give you false, no matter what you do. So think of it as the two brothers at the door. One will always tell the truth, one will always tell the lie, the false. So you can think of it that way. Always true, always false. And then this one basically acts as null. You'll also instantly know that if you know Latin, I believe it is, or you're in computer programming. Null can basically mean 0, nothing, not there. So yeah, it can be useful at times. And now this one basically will give you a 0 vector, a vector at 0, 0, 0. Basically, origin vector. Now these, which I'll use later to show you that spell that I showed last video. But yeah, so these basically act as basically axis directions. Either positive x, negative x, or even positive y, negative y. So let me show that. Positive y, or negative y. Or even the same case in the z-axis. So yeah, they can be quite useful. But I'll show you a good way to use them later in the video, which you'll see is quite complex. Now these two, you may either instantly go, oh, I know what those are, or you might not. So basically, these are essentially pi. So if I go later into constants, you can see basically circles reflection, which is basically the same equation to get pi, but instead of using diameter, you use radius. So that is roughly 6.28. So if I draw this, I shall get pi times 2, essentially. It gives me pi times 2. If I draw the other one, it gives me normal pi. Yeah, normal pi is essentially this divided by 2. Because that uses radius, this uses diameter. So it's a little little thing. In this one, I actually don't know where E came from. I'm not that far in math, people. But E should give you 2.72. I think it's supposed to go on further, but it just cuts off at the 100th. Yeah. So, that's all that. And now, over here, we have stack manipulation. Stack manipulation, you may have seen me do some of it. Now this one is Bookkeeper's Gambit, and I explained it wrong. Hello. So this is post to my hexes man explaining Bookkeeper's Gambit again, because I explained it horribly and misunderstood it. So I'm back to explain it properly. So let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is actually explain it properly. Last time I got confused thinking this would allow me to skip over stuff. I was wrong. So essentially I was doing all of this backwards. So what Bookkeeper's Gambit allows you to do is erase something from the stack. Like for example, if I make a mistake. This is a special variant called Novice's Gambit. It allows you to remove the top IO very easily. Very common. Now if I continue on, and then halfway I make a mistake, and I accidentally continue, and I want to get rid of it, this and this wouldn't get rid of it. It doesn't skip this one, then go down. What I have to do is, I have to erase, and then skip. That will skip the top IO, and then go down to the second IO. And then get rid of it. Even if I have, let's make an not what I meant to do, but let's make like actually proper stuff. So I can show you. So number 0, number 1, and then let's go mistake. Then let's go number 3, number 4, and then number 5. So see, if I want to get down to that, I have to go this to say I'm erasing, then skip 3 to skip those top 3 IOs, and it erases that one down. So yeah, I wanted to clarify that I made a mistake, and yes, if I make multiple mistakes, I can then fix those multiple by just doing the same thing in a way, but fixing it in a better way. So if I want to erase this one, I have to go down to signify that. And essentially I'm going to go 2 up because I'm skipping those 2 zeros after it. Then I'm erasing the 2 that I need to get rid of. Then I'm going, oh, and I don't have enough room, so I have to back up a little bit. So let's give myself as much room as possible. So there, and delete those 2, and skip 3 to make sure I don't get rid of those 3. And then do this, then that, and that signifies get rid of all those errors. So yeah, I just wanted to signify I messed up on this. So I'm fixing it by re-recording this in post. So yeah, all I have to say. Now, on to the next ones. That's my bad. Now these are the rotation type gambits. This one is called Jesters. Those 2 are called rotation 1 and 2. Essentially, this one is nice and neat. Let's say I have me and then 0 vector, just any 2 IOs. Then I want them to be in the opposite position. I want number 0 to be at the bottom and I want me at the top. I do this. I draw Jester's Gambit and cast. It flips the 2. Very useful. Now these 2, basically let's say I add in an X. So rotation Gambit 1, yeah, will start off like this, and it should take 0, 0, 0 and pull it to the top. Yes, while leaving me at the bottom. And now the other one, I don't fully remember. I took the top and put it on the bottom, so it's just rotation Gambit 1 in reverse. So they're just inverses of each other. Very useful. Now, these two can also be quite useful, I believe. This one I actually, this one I think I do remember. Yeah. So this one will essentially copy any IOT from the stack. So let's say I want 2 of myself. I have 2. Now let's say I have null for the next example. This one will copy 1 from the top. This one will copy the one below the top. So let's say I still want me. So I'm going to draw this one. And it copied me because I was the one right below the top one. Useful. Now let's say I want this one. This one will copy the top one and then slip it under it. Under the one below it. So what it should do is that it copied this high up here, slipped it down below. So it's like I cast this and then cast this. So Gemini's Gambit, yeah? Yeah, Gemini's decomposition and then rotation Gambit. Quite useful. And then this one acts as a multi-form of Gemini's Gambit, but to any number I want. So let's say I want 5 of myself. So I put in the number 5. Then I basically draw this pattern, and then bam, I have 5 at the top. Quite useful. Now this one will take any two IOTs at the top of the stack and basically copy them like so. So see, it copied them in that position. So yeah, can be quite useful. And this one will basically give you how tall the stack is. So I have 4 right now. So what it should give me is 4. The number 4 because it's 4 tall. Now these two are quite nice. Let's say I make a me and a whole bunch of random stuff. I'm not all that creative all the time with putting in random. Yeah, so now I want to get myself again. So what I'm going to do is pull the number 3, I believe. I always remember or forget. So what I should be able to do is go to stack manipulation and Fisherman's Gambit. Yes. So index by the number. Okay, I don't fully remember how it works because I actually don't use these two a lot. I don't. Surprisingly so, even though they're useful. So what I'm going to do is put the number 3 and see if that works. Now, that did work. So it grabs the one nth down from that position. So it went 1, 2, 3. Now, let's say I want this one now. So I put 3 because I want now that null, that 0, that 0, 0. And then I want to keep it down there, but I also want one on the top. This will do the same thing, but copy it this time. So instead of grabbing it, it makes a copy. Useful. And this one rearranges the stack from top to bottom. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. and then I do this, what it should do is rearrange the stack. So then 1's at the top and 5's at the bottom. Except oh, never mind. I misremembered. It'll rearrange the stack based on another number you give it. I actually don't know the table, so the table is right here by its page. Swindler's Gambit. So this is Future Alex again. I really messed up a lot in this video. Apologies, I have to fix it a lot. But the codes and stuff are down in the description. The link is there for that page. So, continue on. I just don't really remember it. My bad. So, the next one we should be going on to should be... this should be logic operations. Yes, it is logic operations. So, this one will convert anything into a Boolean expression, which, if you remember from the constants, is either true or false. Now, this one takes 3 things, I believe it is. Yeah, 3 different things and considers them to be false. And those things are either 0, null, and an empty list. Now, these 3 things it will consider false. So if I draw out the pattern, false, this, false, and this will also be false. All of those 3 will be false. Everything else, I think, is considered true. Now this, I believe, it will convert a Boolean into either 1 or 0. 1 is true, 0 is false. So it will take either true and turn it into 1, or false and turn it into 0. Yeah. And then this one, I'm having to do this because I don't actually remember all these well. I don't actually use most of these patterns. I actually want to see what all y'all can make, but let's see. So this should flip it to either, so this should turn it into true. It is now true. Quite useful. And these 2, if one of the 2 is true, I believe. Yeah. So if one of them is true, like if I give it a false and a true, it will come out as true because one of the 2 were true. Now, if I do the same thing with this, a true and a false, it will become false because one of them were false. Now, if I instead cast 2 trues, it will then finally be true. Now, this one requires both to be false. This one just, this requires both to be false, to itself be false. So only one needs to be true for it to be true. This one, if one of them is false, it will be false. And if both are true, then it's true, which is very useful. Now, this one, so if one of the 2 is true and only one of the 2, it will return true. If both are true, false. If none are true, false, which I find quite interesting. So if I do this, it should be true. Now if I do this, no, not that, this, it should be false. Yeah, so also useful. Ooh, this one I also used in my spell to say if I was crouching or standing up, either to break or make a block. So essentially how this works is it takes in 2 lists and a Boolean. If if the Boolean is true, the first thing, the first IOT, this one right here, it will keep. If it is false, the second one, it will get rid of. And the end result, or no, the second one, it'll keep if it's false. And the end result will be whichever one it kept, which is very nice. So if I have a false right there and have 1 and then 0, if I do this, it'll keep the 0 because it was false. Now if I get one that is true, it should keep the 1 and get rid of the 0. So it can be quite useful to decide if a thing should be kept or not based off if a thing is true or false, which is quite useful. These two I also don't remember. So basically these are to get if a thing is equal to one another within a small tolerance. So this one, if it's the same, so like 1 and 1, no, not that, but oh well, this should come out false. But now if I do 1 and actually 1, it will come out true because they're close enough. Now if I do 1 and 1 on this one, it will come out false because it is the inverse. So if it's too close, it won't work. And I need to work on my building skills. But yeah, so those two can be quite useful. Now this is Maximus distillation, I believe. No, it does not look like so. It is Minimus distillation, and that is Maximus. So basically they act as greater than and equal, not greater than or less than signs. So if I have 1 and then 0, the 0 is less than the 1, so if I do this, it'll come out. No, it's based off the first one. So if this one was less than this one, then it would be false. But it's not, it's greater than. So if I were to do it again, but using Maximus this time, it should come out true. Yes, that's how it is. Quite useful. Yeah. Now these two are basically the same as this, but it also is equal then. So if I have 2 1s, it'll still count as true because they are equal to one another, which is very useful. Now these are entities. So if I go out back to here to show you entities, it's how to get like an entity into your stack using a position and stuff, which can be quite useful. So this one will just get any entity, anything at a specific vector. So if I do this, then move back and cast it after I, of course, copy it, it'll give me nothing because there's nothing there anymore. Null, because nothing is there. Now if I do move back there, which I believe was right here, and then cast it again, but this time with me at that spot, if I am in the right spot, it'll give me myself, because I am the one standing there at the moment that's cast. Now, these ones will act as more defining ones. This one will get specifically animals. This one will get specifically monsters. This one will get specifically items. This one will get specifically players. And this one will specifically get living. Now this one will basically act as the first thing, but with a zone. So let's say I give it a vector, a position to check, but actually needs more than that. Let's say I'm 2 blocks away from that position. If I do 2 blocks, a range of 2, I will be in it, and if I cast it, it will give me myself because I'm within apparently not. I'm not within its range. But yeah, it'll give you a list of all entities within that area, which can be quite useful. And the same thing goes for the vector entities, but instead of having just one of each, it will give you, if you get to the right page, zone distillation. Where is zone distillation? There we go. So it'll give you either the thing or non the thing. So animal and non-animal. And we'll repeat this for monster, non-monster, item, non-item, player, non-player, as well as living, non-living, which is very useful. So keep that in mind. Yeah, and you may not always use these, but they're always a nice little trick to keep in the back of your pocket. So remember that. And now we're going on to list manipulation. Now to kick off list manipulation, we're going to go to its special little place, list manipulation. And like I said, I don't have all of these memorized. Some of them I have memorized quite well, some of them not so much. So let's go over it together. And I can explain it because a little skim over should help. List and number. Removes number from the top of the stack, then replaces the list at the top of the stack with nth element of the list, or n. Okay, so basically it gets rid of a list and then also a number and pulls whatever thing was in the list at that spot. So yeah, you can pull out any specific thing from a list. So for example, let's do a little list. Me. It's just a list of parents. So it should be fine. And then I close it off. Perfect. It contains all those. Let's say I want, I think it's the first. So if I go this, if I want me, myself, that little pattern right there, I would have to go 0 because it's the starting point of the stack within the list, 0, the origin. And then I do this, it'll pull out that from the stack. If I want the later elements, like the 5th one, I would have to do number 5, and then I have to cast it, pull out the 5th element, and of course you have to draw it correctly and not just weirdly, and then bam. And I was a bit too far. It was going to be the 4th one, but I messed up. So if it's not within the bounds of the list, it'll just give you null, which is nice to know. This one will take, so this will make a sub list. I remember messing with this earlier. So essentially, if I make a list of numbers, starting with 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, all the way to 5, so I have 6 elements within the list. Yes, 6 elements right there. Now, I'm going to copy it so I can show you a couple of times. So let's say I want element 0 through 2. What I'm going to do is I want to start from element 0 of there, and then I want to cut off everything above element 3. I'm going to put the number 3. And using that, I'm then going to cast. And what it's going to do is cut off everything that was after. It'll cut off 3 and everything after, and keep everything from that starting point. So element 0. Now I can repeat this again. With the other list, I could start off with number 1, because I want to start off with the first element, and then let's say I want to cut off 4 and everything after. So I'm going to do number 4. And then I can cast it again. And then from that, I get element number 1 all the way to element 3, and 4 and everything after is cut off. So you can make little sublists from bigger lists. Quite useful. Now these two are useful for either putting a thing in a list or taking a thing out of a list. I view it as put it in the list going down, take it out the list coming out. So let's say I want to make a little empty list like this. I want to put myself in that list. So what I can do is I can put it in like so. Now this only works with the top item. It doesn't work with many items. Only one item at the top and then a list below it and shoves it in. That's all. This will basically do the opposite. It'll take the top item out of the list and put it into the stack. It's quite useful if you want to pull only one item from the top. Now let's put it back in, because this next one is additive distillation again, but this time you can add two lists together. So let's make a list with a me pattern. Yeah. Now I want to have this list be added with this list, so then this is right after me. So what I can do is just additive distillation. Quite useful. Yeah. And now this one you may have saw me make earlier. It is vacant list. I actually use this one a little bit. Basically, you can make a empty list whenever you want, just by that. A whole empty list with ease. Now this one is basically a specialized form of this. It basically allows you to take anything at the top of the stack. So, because I haven't touched vectors in a little bit, let's have a 0 vector. Now, I just want this to be in a stack. I don't want to make a stack before it. So let's just inputs the top item and only the top item in a list. Very useful. Now this will give you how long a list is. So if I draw it, it just gives me a number 1 because it's too long. Now I get rid of it, and then I do something like this. What it should do is nothing, because nothing was in there. Now this should come out to 2. The number 2. Quite useful at times. Now this one will take everything within a list and flip it. So let's do the list I did before. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 6 things in total. So basically it will take the bottom out and flip it to the top, and then do the same for everything else within any list. Make sure to always clarify that part. And then with that, it flipped everything. So it can be quite useful. Now this one I also don't remember. So basically it'll take out, so let's say I want to find out which, like which number the little 3 glyph is within that stack. So what I'm going to do is I want to find out what number that is in the stack. So I'm going to draw or get a little pattern of it and then say, hey, which index is this within the stack? And it's the second index, because 1, 2, 3. No? Wait, that's not right. Oh, right, it got flipped. So it's coming from this way. So 1, 2. See? Right there. Because it got flipped, so it's 1, 2. Second index from 0. So 0, 1, 2. Remember that. Quite useful. Now, these two, this one kind of looks similar to the little sublist from earlier. If I remember it, that is sublist, correct? Yes, little sublist. But this is not the same sublist. It is not. In fact, the little pattern next to it, this one, is weirdly more similar in it than the own thing it looks like. So basically, it removes a number from the top of the stack and removes that element, the element at that location, the nth element, n for number. And yeah, so let's say I want to remove that. So I'm gonna remake that little list. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close off the list. And then there. So now, using this, I can remove that element. Not like that. That wasn't right. There we go. And then, bam. That element was removed. Now this one will take a number and then anything and put it into that spot. So let's say I want to put that into that area. So I want to add 3 back. I want to double check that is the item. No, it's first the number. So let's have number 2. And then I want the number 3 put back in. So I'm going to do that. And at this point, it's just draw it and then cast it. And then it replaces, or no, it puts it in at that location. So it shoves everything else at that spot up and it puts itself in. So it's just inserting itself. And it's called surgeon's extillation. No clue how to pronounce it, but it's like it's cutting in and in placing a thing, like a surgeon. Quite useful. Now these two are useful in a way. This one can basically take any list and remove all its elements, and unlike Hermes' Gambit, it won't cast them. It will just remove them. So it's very useful. But if you want to have multiple things put into a list together, you can have many things and that number, so 5 things in this case, and essentially just put it all back together. And now it's all back in a list. Quite useful. Now, these two, I actually wish I didn't erase that list, but we all make mistakes. So, what I'm going to do is make a new list again. And while doing so, I just make the same list. Because for some reason, I like making lists based off these numbers. And I close it off. Now, this one should remove the top IO and add it to the first area of the stack. So, let's say I want to have -1 as a pattern. What am I thinking? Okay, there we go. And then I have not +1, -1. And then I add it to the start of the stack, or the list stack. And then bam, -1 before 0. Quite useful. And now if I want to remove the first item of a list, I can just, nope, not starting from there, starting from here. And then, bam, I can remove the first item of a list. Very useful. Now, these are escaping patterns, I believe. Yes, these are escaping patterns. This one you've seen me use a lot. It's how I make any pattern into a pattern IOT. So it'll basically make it so in whatever pattern you draw next will be an IOT in that shape, which is very useful. These two you've also seen a lot. This one's called introspection, and this one is retrospection. This is how you start a list and then end a list. Very useful. And this one is what you draw if you mess up within a list. If you mess up and you didn't want it like that, so let's say I'm making break block, and then I make a mistake. I didn't want that. I can just erase it and then continue on making my spell. Quite useful. Now, outside a list, it doesn't work. See, it is an actual pattern, but just if it's outside the list, it doesn't work. So keep that in mind. Now, this one and this one are both from reading and writing. Yeah, I had to do a little shortcut there. But yeah, reading and writing, basically, these ones you've also seen quite frequently. So this is how I write something into, per se, my spell book. So let's say I have an empty page and I want to write Caster's Gilmore in here. So I get just... Oh wait, this is initialized pigment. Oh well. So I write this, and then I can set it inside with Scribe's Gambit. That's how I write in an item. And the page, the little thing is, I didn't know that before. But yeah, so basically, we'll put whatever's in here, the top IOT in your stack, and put it into whatever's in your offhand if it can hold a IOT. Now this will allow you to read an IOT. It is called Scribe's Reflection. It will pull the IOT out of whatever is in your offhand. Now, because I don't want that in there, I'm gonna erase it. Now, these two basically act the same, but instead of for whatever in your offhand, it's whatever entity you're looking at. And it'll either be able, and it depends on if the entity is able to have something written in it or not. That heavily matters. So remember that. And now these are to either see if you can write into something, I believe. Yes, I believe it is write in something. Yes. So this is to see if you can write in to whatever's in your offhand. So in this case, because I have a spellbook and I can write into it, it shouldn't come out false. But you can see by my surprise that shouldn't be the case. So okay, this is reader's reflection. It will reflect if I can read the IOT, not if it can hold an IOT. This one will tell if I can write an IOT. So if I can write an IOT, it's true. And if I write that, and then try this again, because there's an IOT in there, it will come back true. Kind of useful. And then these two are the same, and you may notice they look identical. These are not identical. They're twice the size. That's how far you have to draw for each of these ones. Yeah. So keep that in mind. They look similar, but they're not. Now, these refer to something called your Raven Mind. Your Raven Mind is a special area to store a IOT temporarily, but that is within the spell that you're currently casting. So as soon as your casting grid is cleared, it's gone. So let's say I want to save the false. So what I'm going to do is draw this pattern. I can draw it, and then, bam, it's saved within my Raven Mind. Now notice it does take away the IOT, so be careful of that. So now if I want it back, I just do this, and then it reads it out of my Raven Mind repeatedly, which is useful. But now if I clear the grid, it's gone. So the Raven Mine will only stay as long as the grid is not closed and the hex is still going. So keep that in mind. Now, on to our next section, which should be so this is advanced mathematics. So if you're in high school, you should recognize these: sine, cosine, and tangent. Basically, I actually haven't messed with these in a while, but basically, sine is like sine wave. You remember graphing, right? If you're not in high school, you will go, what do you mean, sine wave? It's basically a wave within a graph that continues on and on. So, yeah, these I can't actually give you all that much information on because I don't remember them. Yes, I'm in high school, people, but that was a while ago. My bad. But, yeah. So, these are basically, those are the normal signs, like sine, cosine, tangent. Then this is inverse sine, inverse cosine, not inverse tangent. This one's inverse tangent. Now this one is inverse tangent 2, I believe. Yes, inverse tangent 2. I actually don't have any clue. These I had somewhat a clue, I just don't remember how to explain it. This, I don't have a clue at all. This one removes a number at the top of the stack, then takes the log. It has to do with E. That's all I know. It has to do with that E, remember? The little E. And even E I don't know, so. Sorry, people. Advanced mathematics I can't tell you much about. Neither can I tell you about this next section called sets. Sets is basically to do with bit sets. So if you're familiar with like binary code, where it's like 1s and 0 to make up numbers. Like number 0 is just only 1 0. But now if you go on to number 2 per se, that is 10. If you go on to 4, that's 100. If you go on to 5, that's 101. If you go on to 9, that's 1001. That's all binary code for each of those numbers. So I can't tell you much about this section because I don't know a lot about binary code. I may make future videos on these sections if I learn more about them to kind of teach you. But for now, I don't know about these sections. So just learn about binary code for this one, and that one is advanced mathematics. But other than that, I can't really tell you what these sections are mostly about. I just know the loose stuff of what they are, but these two sections I cannot help you with. I am sorry. Now, this section is meta evaluations. Right here, meta evaluations. Now, you may have seen me cast Hermes Gambit a lot, just like when I would break blocks. So I want to make a list and make a whole bunch of patterns to break a block. And when I do that, I get this. Now, if I were to try to Flock's Gambit to remove them to cast, you know that won't work. It doesn't do that. Now, if I do Hermes Gambit to cast that, what I'll get is a proper cast. Because it'll take a list or any drawable pattern, any pattern that I can cast, and it will act as if you just wrote that, which is useful. Now, Iris's Gambit is somewhat similar, but it does things a little differently. Here, let me show you. Now, I'm going to draw the same spell again, because it's a good example. Breaking a block. Makes sense. It works. It's one of the most basic spells anyone can know. You're just breaking whatever block you're looking at. Now, this one is called Iris's Gambit. If I draw it like so, and then try to cast it, it will leave a jump IOT. The jump IOT, I don't know that much about. Now, apparently I can cast it, but that doesn't really do anything. Now, if I go to it, you can see it's just like Hermes Gambit, but except that a unique jump IOT is pushed to the stack beforehand. When the jump IOT is executed, it'll skip the rest of the patterns and jump directly to the end of the pattern list. So that's what apparently it does, but I don't fully know. So it just seems like, oh wait, never mind, I now understand. You know, one of those moments where you explain to someone, then you suddenly understand it, even though you didn't before. So it jumps, essentially. That makes a lot more sense when I think about it in past tense, but essentially, it works similar to another one called Chronos Gambit. You can use it to completely jump out of a spell if stuff isn't working. It'll basically stop the spell if the jump out is cast, and then you just jump out of it. It'll end it and jump out when casted, which is very useful. Now, Thoth's Gambit is another one that I really like because it is super useful if you want to do multiple things. So let's say I want to break 2 blocks. So I am going to draw those 2 blocks into my stack. Heck, we could make it 3. Let's make it 3. Why not? So I get all 3 into my list. And then what I'm going to do is do number 3. Not there because that doesn't work. Number 3. And I do Flock's Gambit, so they're all within a list. Now what I'm going to do is make a new list containing break block. And then close it off and put it before. Now normally if I want to break all 3 of these blocks, I would have to do 3 separate spells to do so, or somehow make a single spell that casts that spell 3 times in a row while rewriting that spell again and again and again. It doesn't work very well, right? But with Flock's Gambit, or Thoth's Gambit, it'll take a list of patterns that can be executed, and then a list, and then after each item in that second list, it'll then put the list of executable patterns. So if I do this, it'll break all 3. Because it basically took each of those positions and then put the executable spell, the break block, right after it, and then ran each one all at the same time. Very useful if you want to do a spell in multiple different locations or with multiple different distinct setups. Useful. And now you have Chronos' Gambit, like I was talking about earlier. Similar to Iris in a way, but instead of still casting and then having a thing to jump out, this one will just forcibly halt. So, let's say I make a list containing me and then basic stuff to get what block I'm looking at. And then, let's say I just want to say what I'm looking at. And then I want to stop it right there. Now, actually I should have break block after that to show it stops right there. Now, as soon as I try cast this spell, whatever block I look at won't break because it stops right before it. But it'll still tell me what I got because all the stuff that happened before it still happened. Just this acts as a stop sign to tell me, hey, knock it off. Don't do that. And then, bam. See? It still worked. It just stopped everything after it, which is useful. Yeah. And now, this one will basically tell me how many times I can cast or something of the sort. I honestly need y'all to tell me what this does, because every time I try to do it, it always gives me the same thing. And I can't figure it out. It always gives me the same number. 0 lists, if I make a new list, with just any old little spell, it will then still read the same. Even if I rotate around and then try casting it, oh, my bad, wrong thing. There we go. There we go. And now even if I do it now, it still will give me that number. It may be related to my media, but I don't think so. It doesn't say anything about media measuring. So I need y'all to tell me what this does. I can't figure out. But yeah, that's meta evaluations. Now we are going on to slate reflections, I believe. Or I may actually be wrong. No, we're going on to spell circle patterns. That's from an add-on. I'll go over that soon in another video. But we're going over spell circle patterns. There's 4 of them, and they're quite useful. This one will just tell you where the impetus is. The impetus is the block to start the spell within a spell circle, so it's useful. This one, I need to check. Wait. Returns the direction the impetus of the spell circle is facing as a unit vector. So basically, it'll tell you which way the impetus is looking. If it's facing up, down, that way, that way, that way. It'll tell you which way it's facing. Kind of weird they don't have it as a little nod to Alan's purification, though. A little odd, but yeah, how people do it. Now, these two, this will return the lower north? Yeah, the lower northwest corner of the spell circle. So the lowest to the northwest. I don't remember if north and west are positive y, not y, but like x or z or something. I don't remember. And this one will basically show you the upper southeast corner. So you can use these two to get like the top little corner and bottom little corner, like you do to make a fill spell with commands. Similar to that in a way. Now these two are for akashic libraries. So essentially, if I go to akashic libraries, so this one will take the position of the akashic record, the core of the akashic library, and then a pattern to signify what spell you want to get, and it will then give you that spell. Now this one will take a position, the akashic record again, and then it will take a pattern as a key, as what pattern you're gonna need again for this pattern to cast, and then you can put in anything you want, any IOT, anything you want into it, and then it will store it within the akashic library. Now, that's all the little things I have to show, but now, as I said, I'm going to show you basically how I made that little pattern, that little spell yesterday. I'll show you it again. It's a little useful. It'll break everything within a 3x3 of it, and quite useful. Now, it's a very complicated spell, so this part of the video is now just me showing you. So I'm going to stay in survival, and actually, I'm going to need to go in creative, because it's big. And this will also be a new potion to show, the Potion of Clarity. It expands your field, so if I open my thing, you'll see it's this big. So basically, if I line up the 2 dots with down there, you see where they are. Now if I take Potion of, not as this, as creative, then you can see they shrunk. So now, what I'm going to do is make a spell. So basically, I'm going to write first where I'm going to look. Now, I may mess up. I'm hoping to not do that, but I may end up doing it because this is a very complex spell. So it starts off with getting the positions of stuff and then adding it to another set of positions. So I'm going to look again, just make sure I'm getting this right. Okay. So basically what we're going to do is make another list again. And we're going to start off with Gemini decomposition. Then we're going to go X, because basically we're going to make a disk, a layer. We're going to essentially select the main inner core, and then we're going to select one out, and we're going to do a rotation around it to select one layer, and then we're going to copy that for 3 layers. That's what we're going to do. So we're starting off with X, and then we're adding it, I believe. Yes. And then we're going to repeat this with multiple different things repeatedly, and make sure that your potion of clarity doesn't run out on you, because that would suck. And then you're going to repeat that with Z now. And then you're going to add it again, then copy it again. It's a very repetitive process, and it takes up a lot of space, which is why you need so much room. So, once again, we're just going to go on as far as we can. And now we are going to have to do negatives. So, negative, add, repeat, and then just negative again. So, essentially, in this point in the spell, we have gone to, I need F3. Yeah. So we've gone in X, and then we've gone in Z, then now we're down here. We need to move over here and then move back there. So now what we're going to do is move over in negative Z. So down, and then negative Z, add it, repeat it twice. Remember, negative Z, not positive. Don't make that mistake. That would suck. You need to save as much room as you can, because this spell, like I said, is complex. And then you're just going to continue on, layer by layer, trying to save up as much room as possible. You don't want to lose any room. Now we're going to continue again with the X's. So positive X, and then the last positive X. And then add it. And that should be the end of it, because now you've gone from here all the way around back to here. So it's gone the whole layer. So now you can basically end that. Yeah. So you're going to duplicate it, because basically you're going to use your Raven Mind so you can call it back easily. So now you have this. And what you're going to do is you're first going to do a negative Y. Make sure it's negative Y. Or, well, it doesn't matter which order you do it in. I just prefer to start from the bottom, then go up. So you're going to do that. Then you're going to get out your Raven Mind, then cast it, because it's going to pull all of that and then start it from there. So now what you're going to do is drink your Potion of Clarity again, because it just ran out. And then repeat this with negative, or not negative, but with 0 reflection. And don't forget the Hermes Gambit, so it actually runs our little thing. Then we're going to do it the final time with positive Y reflection. Hit this one last time. And bam, we have all 27 spots. But now, we need them all to be in a list. So make 27 as a list, which I believe looks something like this. Yes, you get 27, and then do Flock's Gambit. And then, bam, that's all in a list now. Now what you need to do is make your list to destroy the block, or place block whatever spell you're trying to make into here. Useful. And now, what you can do is just rotate the 2, or not rotate, but do Jester's Gambit. Because remember, you need the list that you're executing before the list of all the things you're going to execute it on. Now remember, Potion of Clarity, you don't want that running out. And then, now, you should be able to do Thoth's Gambit, and that should be the end of the spell. Now what you can do is close it up, and look at your masterpiece that runs off your screen. And now, you can put it into whatever you want to hold it in, or just cast it if you're a maniac. And then bam. And now, you can basically just cast the spell if it worked. You see, when something like this happens, you know you messed up. So, I actually have a add-on personally that I'm going to use so that I can look through what I did wrong. Because I actually have no clue. I thought I wrote that correctly. So what we're going to do is look into our little spell. This is from it's Hex Debug. So if you have that, you can use it to look and see what you might have done wrong. So you're going to look through your spell carefully just to try to identify what may have gone wrong. Now this may take a little while, depending on which way you did all this. And you're going to hope that you made everything correctly. And my guess is it's something that I didn't even notice. You can tell when I switch it, something's different. You can see what I did wrong. Okay, so fix what I did. Essentially, right before Flock Scant, or not before, after, we forgot to run our little spell to get where I was looking and then add that position to all of our 27 coordinates. So to fix that, what we're going to do is just simply, in my case, I have the ability to just write it in. You may not have that ability. So just make sure that if on yours is funky, it's because I forgot to tell you to do Flock's Gambit. That is completely on my bad. So right before you draw your little break block thing, like right after Flock's Gambit, draw Thoth's Gambit, and it should work correctly. Make sure to remember that and not mess up like I did. See, and now if I put it back into my main hand and get rid of this, what it should do is not work. Well, people, you can see how sometimes stuff doesn't like you. So it's saying it expected a vector, which means it's most definitely something wrong with break block. At least it can tell you. So now what you're going to go on to do is just go all the way down to your break block and check again. And you can see I have an extra little thing in there somewhere. Huh. Yeah, it can be quite difficult to identify at times. You can see what I did wrong. You never need... that explains it, people. Okay, so that Gemini decomposition we put right after our second list to get that little layer. Don't add that. That was a mess up on me. I haven't wrote this spell in a while. So you can tell I've messed up a bit. So see, there we go. Now the spell will work. Remember, these long spells can be quite tricky. So you may want to add on a little mod like Hex Debug. I'll make a later video talking about all it has. But yeah, some mod allows you to edit your spells in post. Quite useful. But yeah, see? So yeah, using all these patterns combined, you can make quite a complex spell. But yeah, that's all I have to say, folks. So have a great day.